If you open any live flight tracking radar on any given afternoon, you are immediately confronted with a dizzying spectacle. Over 100,000 commercial airliners weaving an intricate, glowing spiderweb across the stratosphere. From the dense super corridors connecting New York to London to the hyper-congested skyways linking Tokyo, Singapore, and Paris, virtually every major population cluster on Earth is tethered together by a non-stop aerial bridge. Yet, if you pull your gaze away from the bustling northern hemisphere and look closer at the equator, you will uncover a massive, baffling dead zone spanning millions of square kilometers of open water, a conspicuous blind spot on the map that almost nobody in modern aviation ever talks about. Between the continental landmasses of Africa and South America, regions that collectively house nearly 2 billion people, representing roughly 25% of the entire human race, scheduled transoceanic air travel is practically non-existent. Why are two massive neighboring continents with such overwhelming demographic weight so utterly alienated from one another in the skies? Your immediate intuitive hypothesis is likely raw geographic distance. You might assume the ocean is simply too vast and punishing to bridge profitably, but the cold geometric data shatters that assumption entirely. The direct great circle distance between the easternmost tip of Brazil at Natal and Sierra Leone's coastal capital of Freetown is a remarkably modest 2,900 kilometers. To put that into staggering perspective, the transatlantic superhighway connecting New York City to London, which sees millions of passengers and dozens of daily wide-body departures, is almost double that distance, spanning well over 5,500 kilometers. In purely spatial and aerodynamic terms, physical distance is unequivocally not the bottleneck keeping these two continents apart. What about the unforgiving logistical challenge of emergency diversion protocols? While it is true that the South Atlantic is a vast, oceanic wilderness with very little terra firma, isolated volcanic outposts like St. Helena, the British-American military runway on Ascension Island, and Brazil's Fernando de Noronha archipelago provide adequate contingency corridors under modern extended-range twin-engine operational performance standards. Furthermore, long-range modern airliners cross vastly harsher stretches of the Pacific every single day without incident. In fact, aviation history reveals that during the golden age of intercontinental flight in the 1930s, giant hydrogen-filled Graf Zeppelin airships operated regularly scheduled, luxurious passenger voyages across the South Atlantic between Frankfurt and Rio de Janeiro with clockwork reliability. The aircraft technology is mature, the physical journey is astonishingly brief, and the historical blueprint was drafted a century ago. Why then have modern mega-carriers and global alliances systematically abandoned the South Atlantic? To uncover the truth, you have to stop looking at flight maps and start following the money. Commercial civil aviation is a ruthless business governed entirely by macroeconomic reality. Airlines do not establish multi-million-dollar wide-body routes based on raw population headcounts. They launch them based exclusively on corporate budgets, high-yield business-class demand, and disposable consumer wealth. Here is the staggering economic divide. Africa and South America hold nearly 2 billion people, yet their combined annual gross domestic product totals just around $7 trillion. Contrast that with Western Europe and North America, holding far fewer people. Each of these northern powerhouses generates an astronomical $30 trillion in yearly GDP, concentrating over 80% of global premium travel liquidity. This disparity directly dictates global migration and corporate mobility. When a specialized petroleum engineer or physician from Africa seeks international career advancement, their trajectory naturally points north toward London, Paris, or Frankfurt. Likewise, top-tier talent from South America overwhelmingly migrates to North American hubs like Miami, New York, or Toronto. Because there is virtually no institutional corporate integration or massive diaspora linking African cities directly to South American capitals, there is no organic travel demand. The skyways do not flow horizontally between the southern continents. The overwhelming gravity of global capital forces the entire aviation network to surge unidirectionally from south to north. Today, only a tiny handful of flights dare to defy this emptiness. Almost all of them anchor in São Paulo's Guarulhos hub, connecting Brazil to African powerhouses like Johannesburg and Addis Ababa, or relying on centuries of shared Lusophone history and Portuguese language ties to sustain slender bridges to Angola and Cabo Verde. Yet, this profound oceanic silence is merely a temporary snapshot of current wealth distribution. Today, over half of the world's 20 fastest-growing national economies are surging across the African continent. As manufacturing shifts, middle classes expand, and South-South trade partnerships mature, the skies above the South Atlantic are destined to awaken. It is no longer a question of if, it is simply a matter of when. Do you believe the South Atlantic could evolve into aviation's next great transatlantic bridge by 2035? Or will global transit permanently center around the Asia-Pacific? Drop your perspective in the comments below. I read and reply to the best analyses. If this breakdown changed the way you look at the world map, hit that like button, share this with a fellow geography buff, and subscribe to join us for our next deep dive into the planet's most fascinating blind spots.